And if you don't have some ambition, and if you don't have, your dog urging you and cheering you on, you won't get there either. You'll just be thinking about, oh yeah, someday I should write a song.
This is Champaign is Also a Band podcast. One songwriter, one song. I'm Sven, your host for a journey into the music of Champaign-Urbana. Recorded in the Blue Box studio with a songwriter from the Champaign-Urbana music scene, past or present. Champaign is Also a Band podcast is proud to be a part of the Champaign Showers Podcast Network. Welcome to Champaign is Also a Band podcast. Today I have Jon Hoekstra, who performs as Honest Lost John. So, John, welcome to the show.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Today we're going to be listening to his song, My Dog Says, off of the recently released album, Little Grassy. So without further ado, let's listen to the song.
Dog says that she wants to go to Sonic Ranch with me. West Texas plains are where cow dogs like us ought to be. Says if we're pitching with chores, they'll record our album for free. Says that she wants to go to Sonic Ranch with me. Why would I know better? I take care with the moves I make. Then again, we'll only live once, and my dog's got impeccable taste. My dog says there's a shortage of fools in this world today. She'll be my Sancho if I'll be her Don Quixote. We'll topple the towers of power, lay the giants to waste. My dog says there's a shortage of fools in this world today. But I know better, and my dingo's just blowing smoke. Then again, in this broken world, only fools can hang on to hope. My dog says the stars only fall when they take it too slow. They break up and they burn when the earth gets a little too close. Says we'll only fly higher and higher the faster we go. My dog says stars only fall when they take it too slow. But I know better, and my cow dog's just telling sweet lies. And again, the cold light of day don't hold a candle to our dreams in the night. My dog says that she wants to go to Sonic Ranch with me.
Welcome back. So of course, Jon, my first and favorite question to always ask is, what came first? Was it the music or was it the lyrics?
My answer to that question is always going to be that they came at the same time. If you mean melody by music. So I write by singing into a voice recorder as my first way of collecting an idea and capturing it. I have like 900 some voice memos on my phone right now. And then later I'll type it and rework it so that I'm picking and choosing the parts that I want to keep, and I'm, kind of going through a first draft of it. And I get it typed, and then I print it out, and then I sit down with a guitar. So I don't touch a guitar until the words are written down and the melody is in my head. And then singing, I find chords that'll support the melody.
So what I'm wondering is, as you're creating the melody and the lyrics, are you thinking it in terms of like, this is the verse, this is the chorus, or is it just like you sing it and then it just kind of feel into what should be the chorus in a way? A
lot of times that kind of distinction will come later, but there'll be a part of it that sticks out to me and as something that is repeatable and feels good to sing and that I like. And then that'll be in my mind, the chorus. And then sometimes the verses take more like reimagining after I get the guitar and I sit down with it and I kind of move things around until I have a structure for the verses. And, a lot of times when I first do it on the voice recorder, it's just the chorus and then a lot of verse material that hasn't really taken shape yet until I get it sort of reworked.
I think I'm kind of the guitar and idea first. Although there are exceptions, but I find a nice chord pattern and I get a groove that I like, and then I write a melody over that, and then maybe even words and melody at that same time, which it sounds like you do as well, but in a different order, obviously. But actually, I'm kind of curious about when you were doing this melody, were you picturing also I want to say like the rhythm that maybe the guitar would be doing? Part of the reason I'm asking this is because your addition of, that D major going into the D major 7 and then into the D dominant, the idea of putting a chromatic spot in there under that melody, that wouldn't have been my first impulse if I started with melody first and then added the accompaniment.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about how that rolled out.
I can't remember, really. I'm sure I tried something else before I came up with that, and thanks for listening. I mean, what you do is a service to people who work on this kind of stuff, and, not that many people pay attention closely to what's happening. So that feels good. But I couldn't even tell you. I imagine what happened was, I had a different chord change in there and I just wasn't liking it. And I reached around in my head, which is full of fragments of other people's songs that I've learned. Like, before I started writing songs, I was charting songs for this kind of sing-along group that I do. I created like a whole book of like 200 charts of songs, and now the collection is up to maybe even 350 songs that have been put in this thing. So we learn all these songs, and, then these parts and these concepts just are there as tools for situations where you're hearing something in your head and you can't quite find it on the guitar. I know that that's in some songs that I know and I can't remember where it's from, but
that's really interesting, because how do you feel like the process of creating these charts, how do you feel like that informed your own guitar chord use? Because I was just like, I feel like I would run into the problem of like, oh, it's that chord progression. But I mean, if we're going to be honest, like if it doesn't, 1 4 1 5 1, just there are some very standard patterns that are accepted as that's how you write a song, right?
Right.
So, and it's not like we're ever going to create some new chord pattern that is not already used. But I mean, I would feel like that wouldn't hinder me, but would make me question. So I'm curious about how that informed your own
I don't know. It's
writing.
almost like it's the opposite because having seen so many songs and seen where they're similar and seen where they're different, and so many uses of little things like C down to B down to A minor, in a little bass line descending, or the G to F sharp to E minor, just like that's the same thing in a different key, but you know what I'm talking about. And realizing, oh, this little thing is in 4 songs that I like, and they're not from crap artists, they're from people that are respected. And it's like, that's just how folk works. You learn things and then you use it and rearrange it a little bit. And I never feel like it's totally unoriginal, partly because I'm starting with that melody that I'm just singing, starting from the words. I feel like that sort of constrains me to coming up with chords that support them. And sometimes that's a real like standard 1-4-5 thing, but a lot of times it's not. And I wind up with things that I wouldn't have come up with if I just sat down at the guitar. Yeah. I don't know. That's how it works for me, at least.
That's one of the things I enjoy about talking with different artists and the way that they compose and put together their work, because even if something sounds similar in terms of process, it's always a little bit different. And I don't know, I think it's interesting to me, the idea of creating just a melody on its own, unless you were just going to create a melody, like an a cappella melody without an accompaniment, because I get so many cues about where I think the music should go based upon the accompaniment and then writing. So I just find it fascinating. I guess that's all I really wanted to say, but
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
A big part of it is there is rhythm, and in what I'm doing usually, like I'm walking a lot of the time, and I walk in places where there aren't a lot of people around, so I feel like I can, sing. Or sometimes I'm driving, but I'm doing this in a careful way, hands-free, where I can, and I'm on the interstate or whatever. So there's some rhythmic stuff happening, and then words come to me, but string 2 words together and you have a melody. So that's the concept of prosody, right? Prosody, that's huge. Prosody is key. But I love just taking words and thinking about how I would speak them in my flat Midwestern accent, and then where is the music in that, and try to find that.
Let's kind of back up again to beginning with this song. When you started putting together the melody and then some of the words, when did the concept of "My Dog Says" come into picture?
That was the first line of the song, was the first thing that came to me. I think I was out working in the garden or something. I was kind of thinking about this idea of like, my hot take for the day is that I really don't like hustle culture, especially for like creative stuff. I have the luxury. I don't have to make money at it. I can just do this for fun and because I love it. So my inclination sometimes is to be a little lazy and not really do things. But then on the other hand, I've just had this kind of obsession with, there's always a song around in my head for the past year and a half or so. At that time, I had this dog, and this dog was just like she is in the song, just very enthusiastic, like assertive. She went after what she wanted. She believed in herself. And it was like to an extreme that turned it into a real sad story. But so I could kind of hear her telling me, like, come on, do something fancy or fantastic, or, get attention or make great music or whatever. And then, my like super Midwestern kind of cautious side was like, that's not realistic. That's kind of a stupid idea. The whole idea of me writing songs is kind of dumb. Like, putting myself down, but also I identify with that voice of, like, this isn't realistic. You're older. You don't sing real well. Just all these things. I was having an argument in my mind, and I turned it into a conversation with my dog and started singing. And so then it was about Sonic Ranch, which is a spectacular recording studio that I had just heard Adrian Lenker or somebody like that had just recorded a record there. So.
And it's kind of you contribute your chores to, right? Like you work on the ranch and that exchanges, or is that actually a real thing? Or that would be amazing though, as if you actually
fun.
I mean they do have vacations where you can go and work on a real ranch, and and I'm like, well, I mean, if they wanted to do a working ranch but also have a recording studio, I mean, you would definitely have, if you have a ranch, you would definitely have room to have a recording studio. So I don't know. I thought it was a great idea. So somebody get on that if that's not a real thing. I want to hear people that have a working ranch, but then they pay people by giving them studio. But I love that.
Somebody to work off here. But that was just my idea of my dog's naive, proposal for how we would pull this off, and it just went from there.
Oh, I love it though. But you could see how something like that could actually work. So I'm getting a little excited about the way that you're talking about your own work. And then the exuberance, should I say, that anyone that's owned dogs, and I know in particular like cattle dogs have even more exuberance. But generally, if you have ever had a dog, if that dog decides that you are its human, there is a devotion and a love that is so surprisingly unconditional. And like the idea that even if you sing terribly or if you sing wonderfully, I mean, the dog's just going to be like, what are you doing? Are you writing another song about me?
Gonna love it no matter what. Yeah, sure.
And I think that's interesting that you're using the voice of, or should I say like I want to say even the visage of your dog as an example of that enthusiasm that maybe personally you might feel like you wish you had a little bit more of. Like, well, you could look at yourself.
I do have it. I mean, I have a positive self-image, and I get excited when I think I have a good song. So I'm not saying that I really do think it's stupid. It's just that I have that voice in my head, that's just like, come on. You're an old white guy, who cares? Sort of stuff. And it's just like, there's a million singer-songwriters that are trying to make a living at it. So I do want to kind of lift them up, and I don't want to get in anybody's way. And I also see how hard they've worked at it and how good they are really just at performing, which is for me like, a real hard thing.
Same.
So I get these feelings, and my dog is just kind of like, it's great. Let's go.
Well, I mean, it's funny you mentioned that. I get the sense, at least, and I'm going to divide this into, verse, chorus, verse. I'm going to say the third verse where it says, my dog says that stars only fall when they take it too slow. And I keep thinking about what you just said in terms of says we'll only fly higher and higher the faster we go. And almost that encouragement that the dog gives you to push yourself or to do it better. And I was just recognizing in that context of that third verse, that's kind of what that reminded me of. I did want to ask about the album that this is on, Little Grassy, is in reference to a winter songwriting retreat.
Yes. Yeah.
Were all of these songs conceived or at least finished, or how did that work in terms of how did that work with the context of this song and then of course all the accompanying songs in this album?
Yes. I went to Little Grassy winter songwriting retreat in 2024, and I showed up there with like 2 songs, and I had decided after making all those charts for Slow Jam, I see how this works now. There's like usually 4 measures per line, and I put a lot of attention into like figuring out where each bar starts and ends and where the vocals come in and stuff. And after doing all those charts, I was like, I could write a song. And so I wrote a couple songs, and then I just happened to be on sabbatical from my job. There was a songwriting retreat, and I was like, that sounds fun. So I just did it. Those people were writing and performing songs that really resonated with me. And I don't know if there was more going on just like with me in my life. I had stopped drinking alcohol a few months before that, and I was trying to be open to doing things that I'd maybe been a little afraid to do. I sat in those rooms and listened to these, who I think are really excellent, singer-songwriters. Maybe not world famous, but they're, established artists. Gosh, it just made me like cry to hear them share their feelings and open their hearts and stuff like that. So that was really inspiring to me, and I got feedback on my songs, which had never happened before. Like one of them that's on that record is called Cocklebur. It's sort of about me being socially awkward and having a hard time communicating with people. I had started it with a line like, here I am stuck at a four-way stop, which is a Urbana thing, like there's too many four-way stops and there's too many people that are either A, stoned, or B, polite, or C, out of it. And so we sit there and we wait.
Yep.
Oh no, you so
I wanted to change the slogan for Urbana to be, no, you go.
You go first. So this guy took me aside and he said, I like that song, but it would really help to put the person that you're singing, the audience, into the song. So start with a question like, have you ever? And I did that and I felt like, oh my gosh, that's different. That's like considerably better, Those sorts of experiences were like really important to me. And so no, most of the songs I wrote later, but a person that I met at that first retreat, Aubrey Powell, who was doing music here in town and doing some amazing stuff, invited me to a meetup where people would trade songs and give each other feedback. And we met at the C4A. So I got to know other songwriters and I had an opportunity to show them my songs and get feedback. So all of these songs went through that process. And then by the time 2025 came around, I was ready to play them, and that's where I made that record.
Let's kind of talk a little bit about recording this song. Definitely feels very vulnerable because it seems like it's just you and the acoustic, right? And
that's
then
it.
There's just nothing. I mean, you're very exposed. And then there's even at the end of the third verse, it's like, my dog says that stars only fall when they take it too slow. And I think there's something in the room, it sounds like, that makes a noise. So I was curious, like,
probably, yeah.
But I feel like I constantly try to encourage people to just get something down, get something recorded, get it so that other people can hear your work, your feelings, your heart, and at the same time, also, if it were perfect, feel like it's not as interesting as something that has something more genuine about it, where it has its flaws, but it also has that character because of those flaws. So that's one of the things that struck me about this album too. I don't feel like you're striving for perfection. You're striving to communicate and connect, which I think people think that being perfect is the way that you connect or you get an audience. And I think, no, it's being able to reach people on a similar level. You know what I mean? I feel like that vulnerable quality, I think, is something that kind of stands out with this work. What made you, after doing the work to create these pieces, what made you say, I should get these down, and then after that, even jump to the part of, I have them recorded, but now I want to release them. Like, okay. I'm curious about that.
Yeah. So first on the production, it was just a live direct recording. At that songwriting retreat, they have a content station, which is in a nice little cabin with a stone fireplace and squirrels scampering around on the roof and stuff like that. The door isn't locked, and so somebody might walk in if they aren't thinking. There's things. But Max Centney, I think is his name, and I hope I pronounced it right, from River to River Community Records in Carbondale, sets up microphones. He's got one to get the room resonance, which is pretty nice in that space. He's got at least one or two good condenser mics to pick up vocals and guitar. I just let him handle it. And all I did was sit there and play through the songs. I thought, I'm going to screw up. And I did have music in front of me, and I did screw up from the standpoint of, like, I can find problems with every single one of those songs. But I was just like, screw it. Fudge it. Fudge that sugar. I'm just going to do this. It's going to be as good as it's going to be. And I got the recordings back from him, and I listened to them. I was like, it's not that bad. I walked out of there feeling good because I hadn't just like totally fudged up. It was a decision, and part of it was I have hearing deficit. I don't hear well in the mids, which I was born that way. I don't get the middle frequencies, so speech is hard for me to understand. Wear hearing aids and stuff like that. And I thought to myself, if I try to listen to this and produce it or mix it or try to equalize it or whatever, I'll probably screw it up because my hearing isn't normal. And the other thing was, if I try to do that, I'm going to with forever,
Right.
And it's going to take a lot of time. It's going to stress me out. And I just said, no, I'm going to. So exactly the way they came, there's even a couple like little sounds of me like saying, oh, okay, what's next or whatever. Exactly the way they came. That's how I put them on Bandcamp. They're just wave files. Whatever mixing happened, he did it. As far as why, I just felt like I kind of want to share these. And part of really what motivated me was getting back into listening to recorded music, because I had gone through kind of a long period of my life where I wasn't really listening to music. And then I guess I went through a Spotify phase where I had playlists and stuff that I would listen to while I worked and stuff like that, and started getting interested in artists a little bit. But it felt like it didn't really feel like any kind of a commitment, And I lost all my physical media as far as like not even having players for it kind of stuff through a couple moves. But when I went to that retreat and heard those people play live, I was like, okay, I want to dig into their music. I was off Spotify at that point because of it feels quaint now, but it was the Rogan thing. There were some people who canceled it. I looked back at it and then I was like, if I listen to them, they're never even going to know I'm listening to them on Spotify, and they won't get any money from it and stuff like that. So I discovered Bandcamp, and I was like, wow, Matt Kulig has got records on Bandcamp. Hope Dunbar has records on, Terry Klein has records. All these artists that I really enjoy. Greg Klima has a huge catalog on Bandcamp. Paul Kotheimer I discovered and is just big on there. It was like, wow, I can listen to this music free with no ads, and then if I want to, I can buy it, and they'll actually get money. And it was just exciting to me. So I was like, I could put my music on here and it wouldn't cost me anything, and people might enjoy listening to it. So that was really what motivated it, was just like, oh, I'm starting to listen to music. I enjoy it. I like to kind of give something back to other people. So it's not released. It's not on Spotify. It's not, I didn't pay the money. I'm sure it's not registered the way that it would be if I went through DistroKid or CD Baby or something like that.
Bandcamp is something that continually evolves, and I really appreciate that they've considered, even now you can even drop and make playlists on the stuff that that you bought, or even so I'm like, I appreciate that they've recognized that being able to create playlists
and
is
share
important.
them. So I just did that. I just made a playlist with 1 or 2 songs from all these kind of obscure people that there's a few that aren't, like Gillian Welch or something like that. It's like, close to household name, but a lot of them are pretty obscure, and it's like 4 hours of music that people could listen and say, oh, I like that. Or, Dave Pride, and that is an amazing record. I love it. What?
Dave Pride and the East Side Five?
Yeah. Clayton Burke, I love his music, and, just all these local people. And so,
for everybody who's keeping track, that's Paul Kotheimer is episode 18. And then, of course, let's see, Clayton Burke, That's episode 111. On first listen, maybe even second listen, it didn't hit me as much as when I started putting basically the verse with the chorus and having it kind of explain it. And the part that I like is the reference to fools in the second verse, and then the reference to fools in the chorus. And what I mean is, it starts off with, my dog says there's a shortage of fools in this world today. And, for me, I'm like, well, there's not really that much of a shortage. But one of the things is that I feel like you sneak this in, and I don't know if this was what you meant, but at the end of the second chorus, there's only fools can hang on to hope. And I was like, that's the shortage right there, is people that can hang on to hope from the perspective of a dog, where it's just like, if only more people could hang on to hope. Those fools, whether it was intended or not, I liked that I could draw that comparison between, like, well, the shortage of the fools is the fools that hang on to hope, and the dog's positive, but
the fool in the tradition of Don Quixote or whatever, the person who's just kind of a little bit oblivious in such a way that it allows them to do things that really don't make a whole lot of sense, like like writing and singing songs when you could just listen to them.
It's so strange that I did not get that reference until, obviously the reference to Don Quixote, but for some reason that didn't connect with me as much as that line of shortage of fools, and then only fools hang on to hope.
That kind of fool's the kind of fool I'm talking about.
Well, so that's my favorite part, that kind of, at least to me, that play. But so what's your favorite part in the song?
The last line about the cold light of day, I guess, doesn't hold a candle to our dreams in the night, which is, a little bit sentimental and stuff, but it just sort of spoke to me. If I go back to what I was saying before, where it was like, I don't like hustle culture and stuff like that, what I do like, because what I sort of see as the downside of that is burning out, like just hitting your head against the wall and trying until you're really only doing one thing and you're not any use to anybody and it doesn't work. Then I think, well, who's really got it figured out? And it's that person who creates and who loves what they're doing and still really enjoys it and still has a life. Especially for songwriters, I feel like there needs to be stuff to talk about. You can't be writing songs about writing songs like all the time, or singing about the road.
I funny enough, like whenever I get stuck songwriting wise, I always write a song about why I can't write a song.
Well, yeah.
And it always ends up being a little darker than I expect it to be. And so I kind of appreciate that.
I was out on a walk and I was like, oh shit, I'm going to start singing a song. So I sang a song about how I wasn't going to write a song. But my point was, the people that I feel like, they really have it, they're not grinding, and just like focused on promoting themselves and doing all that kind of stuff. It's more like they're giving themselves over to something that they love in a balanced way, that they're meeting their other needs and they're fulfilling their responsibilities in life and all that. And yet they also have this other part of their life where they're creating things that, maybe occasionally are beautiful to them. Or that's kind of my dream in the night sort of view of like a person who's found an outlet for some of their emotions and who is finding a meaningful practice around creating things and sharing them with other people. That's worth doing. And if you don't have some ambition, and if you don't have, your dog urging you and cheering you on, you won't get there either. You'll just be thinking about, oh yeah, someday I should write a song. You do have to kind of do it, so.
Why did you pick this song to be the song you wanted to talk about today?
Part of it is because it talks about that struggle to participate in art and be creative and express yourself. And that's something that I want to encourage more people to try to do. I don't have any special qualification for this at all. We hear so much about talent, and we hear so much about kind of the work that's involved, and we maybe underestimate how hard it is. And you know about big, huge stars that have huge amounts of money, but you don't know about the extremely long tail of people that, you know, are just doing it and just barely hanging on. So I kind of wanted that theme to come out. Also, I think this one is more autobiographical than some of them, and my performance was okay on it. I hear the other ones, and I have more points where I'm like, it's kind of flat, you know, issues with like how I sang and stuff. This one, it's okay. It's not too bad. So I felt secure enough to have that be the one.
Again, I appreciate the fact that it is put out there. It's not perfect, but it is honest, and I feel like it has that good about songwriting, if you ask me. Again, I don't know. The idea of getting perfection in songwriting, sometimes it just bothers me. I won't go off on a tirade about that, but it is I don't know, I want to say the inconsistency of performance that makes live music and songwriting interesting, right?
When I was coming up, all my musical heroes were the ones, you know, it's not a real original sort of list, but, you know, people like Dylan and Neil Young and Willie Nelson and, you know, even Gillian Welch or something, they have good voices. I think they have strong voices. I think they have beautiful voices, but they're weird, distinctive, ragged sometimes, or parts of the production are kind of a little bit off or a little bit ragged, and I like that. This authenticity is really big for me. Like some of the stuff I've found on Bandcamp, just really kind of weird sounding, very bedroom, you know, but I like it. I like how it makes me feel, I like how it sounds. I feel pretty strongly about that, and I feel like the writing's on the wall. I mean, the technology is there. I could feed my lyrics into an AI and have a pretty good sounding product effortlessly and instantly, and I would probably be pretty bored with that. I know that I can't quite sing some of those intervals. Like, I can't quite get up to right where I need to get. No better. I'm like a little flat on that, maybe a lot flat. If you have really good pitch and you are listening to me and you're a classically trained vocalist or something, you're probably like, you know, it hurts you. But so I know that I'm not there, but I would rather write a song that has the musical ambition and range and stuff, and then challenge me to try to sing it than to kind of play it safe and just make something that just stays within my, you know, comfort zone. So that's just one thing about it and a lot of what I write. And I remember Aubrey gave me a compliment about that. She said that she liked how I made melodies that I couldn't quite sing. I was like, yeah, I guess that's a compliment.
Thank you. No. Champaign is also a band podcast is proud to support Jubilee Cafe. Jubilee Cafe is a free weekly meal program at Community United Church of Christ, 805 South 6th Street in Champaign, Illinois. Jubilee Cafe serves a home-cooked meal from 5 to 6:30 each Monday. Their mission is to feed hungry people by cooking healthy, delicious meals and by serving their guests restaurant-style with servers waiting on tables. Jubilee Cafe is open to anyone who cares to eat with them. Because food insecurity among students is so high, they serve students as well as others in and around the Champaign-Urbana community who struggle with hunger. Meals are free to all and will be served each Monday evening, located in the accessible lower level of the building at 6th and Daniel Streets in Champaign. For more information on the meal or how to volunteer, Go to the Jubilee Cafe CUCC Facebook page or email them at jubilee.cafe@community-ucc.org. That's jubilee.cafe@community-ucc.org. Welcome back. So, of course, Jon, what is your favorite Champaign-Urbana venue, past or present?
I got a soft spot in my heart for the Iron Post. When we first moved back here in 2015, my daughter was in 6th grade, I think age-wise in 5th grade or something, so well under bar age, but that place had such a great, family atmosphere. You know, it was technically a restaurant or something, I don't know, but we went to see Almost A, which is, I think still, just eclectic kind of jazz combo. Her then piano teacher, Sam Ginger, was playing piano with them. Just such spectacularly good instrumental music, and we would go to see them there. I think we saw Hot Club of Urbana there when they were still, just starting out. This is pre-pandemic, so we saw Knights of Cabiria, which is was a group that just did this amazing kind of all over the place jazz and related forms of music. I love that place. And now, as most of your guests lately have been saying, I frequent the Rose Bowl a fair bit. Not as much as I could or should. I tend to go to bed kind of early. I'm kind of a homebody. I've got a song about it. I don't drink alcohol, so being at the bar late is maybe not my scene. I like to listen to music, but I don't like to talk to people when there's music happening in the background. So all these things kind of militate against me really hanging out at bars a lot, but I do like Rose Bowl, and I went to see Greg Klima there the other day, and it was just absolutely spectacular. It was a great show.
I missed the Iron Post, mainly because it always felt like, I don't know, saying it's a home isn't exactly the right words that I want to use, but it had a sense that every kind of person, every kind of music was welcome. There was always something different being played there. Like, whether it was jazz or hardcore or R&B or there was always all these different varieties, and I always, and it wouldn't be super expensive either, but you could always see something really great. Yeah, I thought that was nice.
Yeah, that was cool.
I really appreciated that a lot. Now that we've mentioned your favorite venues, I think, why don't we talk about some of the things that you're involved with, and also some things that you'd like to kind of highlight.
My first thing that I'd like to promote is a group called Slow Jam, and we meet on Mondays from 7 to 9 at Lincoln Square Mall. We play from charts and we sing all together, so it's kind of a sing-along type thing. A few of the participants don't even play instruments, but a lot of us play acoustic guitar or ukulele or mandolin or dulcimer, things like that.
Where in Lincoln Square is this that you can find it?
It's in the side hallway next to the Common Ground Food Co-op. So there's another little entrance there off to the side of the Common Ground on the south wall of the mall. It's really good if you're a beginner or intermediate type player. I first started going to it when it was led by Hillary Valentine and Rebecca Grosser, who were in a band called the Young and the Fretless, and Becky still is. It was just a great place for me. When I showed up there, I was extremely rhythmically challenged. I still don't have rock solid rhythm by any means, and I couldn't have started a song singing it and leading it in a group to save my life. In fact, I tried a few times, and we just totally went off the rails and crashed and burned. But I persisted, and I learned how to do it, and then it shut down during COVID, and then after COVID, with Becky and Hillary's blessing, I sort of resurrected it. And so I coordinate that, and hopefully in the show notes there'll be a way that people can get in touch.
And say that again, when does that take place?
7 to 9 on Monday nights every week at Lincoln Square Mall. Another thing is a little songwriting group that I coordinate called Songs in Progress. There should be an email in the show notes, I hope, and people can contact me if they're interested. And we just meet on second Sundays, usually 7 to 9 p.m., and trade songs and give each other feedback and encouragement. That was started by Aubrey Powell. I hope her spirit is still there in the room. A lot of the original members are still there. There are a lot of ways that people can participate in music. And, there's a lot of people that are kind of worried right now that it's going to disappear or somehow music is going to die because robots can make it and people use playlists to discover it. And it's very cheap for streaming services to use robot music. And so there's this kind of like fear that, music itself will just be consumed and there won't be any humans that are making it. I think that's, a gross overstatement. But what I want to kind of lift up, there's so many people that do participate in making their own music. And a lot of them are in small groups. A lot of them are at home only. And I want to encourage some of those people that are just at home to try coming out and making music with other people. There's something real special about it. And that you might find out that you don't like it. It might be hard the first time. You might have to find the right group, but there's lots of options. So Slow Jam is one. On Tuesdays in Lincoln Square Mall, there's a Bluegrass Jam, 7 to 9-ish, I think. On Thursdays, there's an Old Time Jam. Same time frame, same place, Lincoln Square Mall. So there's 3 nights a week. And each of those kinds of music has its own conventions. A good way to explore a jam is to sit and listen and just see how it works, and then decide if you want to try to participate come the next time ready with your instrument, if you're not confident or you haven't been in a jam before. And then there are dedicated groups for ukulele, the CU Ukulele Club, and I don't have any details, but I hope it'll be in the show notes. There's one for dulcimer, which is a really interesting instrument, and I know that Luann, who runs that group, will gladly maybe even borrow you one. There is a group that's more like if you want to play classic rock, or if you want to like be in a room with a lot of people and a lot of guitars and energy and maybe a higher volume, then the Muhammad Music Club might be for you, and that's supported by a Facebook group. They sometimes perform in places like Friday Night Live and stuff like that. If you're into open mics and like sharing your music and sometimes verging on a jam, you could go to the Rose Bowl on Monday nights from 8 till whenever, and that's called the Hootenanny. You sign up and you get some time to play 3 songs, I think is usually the max. And then as the night goes on, there are a lot of regulars who will come up on stage and accompany you and stuff, and it turns into a jam. So that's Mondays at the Rose Bowl. So there's the Hootenanny, but there's also an open mic CU group, again on Facebook, with events at the Space in downtown Champaign, and sometimes at Gallery Art Bar. That one is run by Jake Fava of Booth's Blues, I think it's got.
Booth Blues.
Booth Blues, man. It's a great, just cool kind of jam rock band in town.
Episode 74.
All right, awesome. And what a singer that guy is. I first heard Jalen Hope there. Absolutely blew my mind. She had a looper going. Kyle, what is happening? It just was amazing. So there are open mics, and then finally there are opportunities for lessons and ensembles at the Community Center for the Arts in downtown Urbana, in the corner of Main and Race. Some of their bands are like the Marvelous Cretaceous Band. We play all kinds of flavors of music. There's the Tumbleweeds, which is a country ensemble, and they play out at the Rose Bowl every month, I think. Great band led by Dyke Corson. And you can get lessons there too from really excellent players. I've taken lessons there from Sam Payne, who's an amazing flat-picking guitar player. Steve Meadows, who's in like 90s Daughter and some other groups and is a very good guitar player. Other instruments too. So, highly recommended. all those different ways for you to get involved with participating in music. I'm giving you that little nudge to get out of your living room or whatever, or out of your basement, and play with other people. Try it out. You won't like everything you try, but you might find that one thing that feels like home to you, gives you good feels on a regular basis. And it's such a good feeling. It's one of the things that we can do that doesn't harm anyone. It's really good for emotional regulation, I think. You know, I'm not big on pseudoscience, but I think it's good for cognition and stuff. I have a sense that, like, songwriters are working some muscles in their brains that will help them to keep their cognitive health a little longer maybe than somebody who just consumes or doesn't kind of try to wrestle with creating things.
Yeah, I'm often reminded about, some studies that they've done about choirs, that sometimes their own biological functions, so like breathing and heart rate, will become synced in some ways because of
I believe it for sure.
As functioning as a community, I want to say behavior, but also as a community endeavor. Not only are you working together to make something beautiful, but also you're working together to work together, and fostering community and good feelings is always a good thing. So
there's one time that I can remember where there was a situation that arose, and it could have kind of gotten destructive, and I really decided, the music is the thing, being together is the thing, learning from each other and being kind to each other is what we're here for. And I feel like going through that was really kind of good for us. It was kind of a disagreement about a song or something along those lines, but now we've got a song that we do called Cup of Sugar, which is this great Tim O'Brien song about, like, when you need a cup of sugar, you go to your neighbor and you don't talk about politics and stuff like that. So
right.
It's just it's fun.
What do you think makes a good music scene? And I think we touched on some of the aspects, but I'm curious, in your experience, what do you think makes a good music scene? For
me, a lot of it is that engagement. Like, I don't have data to back it up, but I bet you that if you go to the Hootenanny, almost everybody in the audience is also a participant in music in some way, at home or whatever, maybe not actively, but at times. So I think that is a big part of it. I think you extend grace and appreciation towards people if you put yourself in their place and oh yeah, I know how hard it is to do this, or, I've struggled to try to do this myself. And so I feel like it makes for a positive atmosphere when you go to see music. I also really like kind of a listening room type environment. And that's something I forgot to mention, but there's a monthly listening room open mic type experience that is open to folks in CU. It's at the Channing Murray Chapel. It's called the CU Soiree Musicale, which is quite a name, but it was started by a guy I know through Songs in Progress and another guy I know through Slow Jam, and me sort of talking about, wouldn't it be nice to have a place where people could share their songs and have it be focused on the music? Sometimes a bar environment can be real challenging for people, especially when they're not real confident or they're not doing attention-getting music. I heard Ani DeFranco talk about how she came up in music and she had to fight for people's attention. And you can tell by the way she plays, right? It's just like percussive stuff. And she does all this cool stuff with her voice and her lyrics. And that's good that somebody can do that. I saw Greg Klima doing that at the Rose Bowl. Just really good high energy performance. I saw Robbie Fulks do that. But other people are quieter and they're more introverted and they are less confident. And wouldn't it be great to have a place where we could share music and know that people would be listening, or at least it would be quiet and you'd feel like, everybody's together. And so that happens on, I think, the first Sunday of each month from 6:30 to 9-ish at the Channing Murray Chapel in Urbana, right on campus. And the parking isn't bad on Sunday evenings. It's a great place to perform, or just to listen if you like acoustic music.
Champaign is Also a Band podcast is proud to support Exile on Main Street. Exile on Main Street, located in the old train station building at 100 North Chestnut Street in downtown Champaign, has been helping to build record collections since 2004. Carrying a wide array of new and used LPs, CDs, and video games. Exile on Main Street has something for just about any music enthusiast and old-school gaming devotee. Exile also hosts regular free live music shows on its stage, so be sure to check out their Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages for the up-to-date details on the next upcoming event. Open 7 days a week, they can be reached by phone at 217-398-MAIN. That's 217-398-6246. Welcome back. So, John, what is your favorite non-musical thing or things?
Oh, that's a pretty long list. Things pertaining to nature, primarily. So I really enjoy gardening. For a while, my wife and I were coordinators for a Solidarity Gardens garden at Meadowbrook Park, and we still work in that garden a fair bit. And we have our own family plot. So I love to be out in the garden. One of the songs on the record is called My Carbon, and it's about what happens to my atoms when I die. And I hope that some of them will get turned into some soil someplace. I love native plants and taking care of them. I have kind of a collection of them in my yard in Urbana. Still mowing a little bit more than I'd like, but there's a balance to be had there. So all kinds of prairie plants and things like that. I really enjoy learning about ecology and nature and wildlife, watching birds, looking at bugs. I take pictures of insects, especially, all kinds of things, but a lot of it is insects. Post them on a web platform called iNaturalist, where you can identify what you're seeing. I really get into that kind of stuff.
Backing up, so what kind of things do you like to grow? Are you talking about in your garden? Is it a flower garden or is it vegetables, fruits?
Oh, yeah. No, we grow food. Yeah. We grow sweet potatoes. My wife and I work together to start them. It's mostly her project, Tina. So you start with a sweet potato and you kind of lay it in the soil in February inside your house. They'll send up little shoots and you pull the shoots off and you put them in water. And then each shoot becomes a slip, they call it, and it'll grow a root. And then you put that little plant in the ground in June or late May and come back in October or September sometime, dig them up, and you have sweet potatoes. That's, kind of a fun crop to grow. But we do tomatoes and peppers and onions and all kinds of stuff at different times. We've grown a lot of different greens, and we grow garlic. That's a whole year kind of a project. You start them in October, November, let them grow the following spring, and then pull them out sometime in the next couple of weeks or so in July.
Yeah. And then you hang them and...
Yeah, we cure them in our garage. Our whole garage for a couple of weeks is just redolent with the glorious smell of curing garlic. Mm-hmm. They're hanging from the rafters, and there's fan going on in there, and it's just quite a scene. We love it.
How many cloves of garlic, or should I say heads of garlic, are you drying at one time? Well, just to give people a visual, because we have neighbors that also like to grow garlic, and they have a wooden barn, and their rafters are. Yeah. So I'm curious to give people a visual of how many.
This was for Solidarity Garden. I can describe it by saying we kind of hung them on a wooden rack, and it was like 8 linear feet of that, and the plants were sort of staggered on top of each other. So I don't know, a couple hundred garlic plants, I think.
You can hang, should I say a thread? No, like a rope.
Yeah.
Of garlic, which is the stems, into one, and then it kind of makes a big ball of all the heads. Yeah. So you can fit quite a bit on just a few feet. So native plants, I'm assuming prairie native plants in Illinois.
Yeah. I mean, we love all the common ones like, purple coneflowers and some plants that we just kind of got into recently that are really kind of spectacular. Like there's this, it's like a petunia, but it's a native petunia, and it's been doing really good, and we're kind of happy about that. But I love this one called the Rattlesnake Master, which has these spiky little balls on it, and it's kind of got a wicked southwestern desert sort of look to it, but it grows here in
Is it a flower?
this area. Yeah, it's like a long strap-like leaves, like a yucca plant, and then it sends up flowers that are just like round balls that have kind of a spiky look to them. And all these plants are fascinating to me mainly because they connect to other life and they have a history to them and stuff like that. So I like to learn about the insects that feed on them and all that kind of stuff.
I found it really interesting how when you take care of and propagate native plants in an area, if you figure out a way to get them to function the way that they're supposed to function, it will sustain itself in a very good and positive way.
That's true to a point.
Yeah.
My wife and I do a lot of what we call curation, which means there are species that are just too good at what they do, and we like them, but we don't like them to the extent that they want to exist in the world. So we will cut them back and do things like that. There are some weeds that will make their way into even a pretty healthy prairie. We can't burn it the way that the Native Americans did, so we don't have that going for us. Our neighbors burn their prairie, but ours isn't really set up so that we can do it safely.
Jon, thank you for being on the show and telling me about your song My Dog Says and recording the Little Grassy album, all of the different opportunities available here in Champaign-Urbana for people to explore music, to get involved in music, and then kind of find their little sweet spot in terms of where to play or participate in music. And then, of course, your favorite non-musical things. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Sure, I've enjoyed it. Thank you for listening to Champaign is Also a Band podcast. This is Honest Lost Jon reminding you great music is out there. Go make some, find some, or buy some on Bandcamp where you live. Make great music or whatever.
That's a wrap.
Champaign is also a band.
You almost have an NPR voice. It's so good.
Studio South Beaker on the inside.
Fudge it. Fudge that sugar.